Hi everyone, it's Burt and Suzy, and today we're going to ask the question, is the world real?
No.
No.
No, because it has a beginning, middle, and end. And anything that ends, anything that dies, is time bound. Time bound is one of the lies that we have given the world and people, you see. Similarly with you and me. The body is time full. So it ages, it gets old, it gets buried, blah, blah, blah. But the spirit that is me, the spirit that is I, okay, is timeless. Once we start realizing, but really realizing, really feeling that time it doesn't exist, and in truth, time doesn't exist.
Because it comes to an end? Because there's ends?
Because there's an end to it, yeah. And time itself is kaput.
And time is really a measure of change.
That's right.
So
well,
along with
change, yeah, it could be okay.
Right, but there can't be time without change, because time can only exist with memory and change. This was here and now it's there. If everything remained the same, there'd be no way to even figure out time.
Okay.
So then...
So what we call timeless is not really an object, because all objects, all things, everything that you can touch and see and feel is made up of time.
So everything that changes is not real.
Anything that changes is time, is time bound.
And not real.
And not, therefore, real. That which is real is always, 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 always. You see? Yeah.
So time is an idea that we use, which is made up. It's an illusory idea to give to kind of solidify the illusion that the world is real and that I live in a body in a world and I'm subject to time.
That's right. And because we're subject to time, excuse me, we're subject to suffering. We're subject to fear. We're subject to things happening, fear of impending dangers, so to speak. It can be helped.
Okay, so if I'm the timeless eternal, how did I suddenly find myself trapped in time and identify with something that's limited?
You're not trapped in time. You think you're trapped in time. Okay? The thinking, because thinking is limited.
And how did that come about? Like, what made that come about?
Well,
and how do I get over it?
Okay. Let's go to the beginningless beginning, before time began, which of course is inconceivable. So when we go back to that which never began, never had a beginning, we call it heaven.
Heaven. Okay.
Right.
So there's heaven.
Right, that's right, yeah. And we call it God. God has no beginning and no end. But when God lived in his heaven, were there people there?
I don't know. Was I there?
No, okay. Yeah. There were beings called aware beings.
And you call that the Son of God?
And we were part of the God, right. So you and I never had a beginning. We were there from the endless.
Forever.
And
we're there now.
Forever. This is something that the mind can't conceive, because the mind lives in time. As a matter of fact, when we were all known to be one, we lived in joy, we lived in paradise, okay, millennia ago. Then there crept in a crazy question, a moment of thinking that somehow I can be separate, I can be different.
Or something could be better than perfect.
Yeah, and so that started what we call...
consciousness?
That started consciousness. Very good, okay.
So it created a sense of separation.
Yeah, consciousness is what builds the ego, okay? So now we got the consciousness came into being. We began to conceive of making a life for ourselves based on time.
So when prior to that we were in a oneness and we had everything fulfilled and there was a thought, what would it be like to be separate?
That's
And
right.
so then we imagined what that would be like and we discovered what that would be, and that gives us this limited time.
And the
bound.
moment we separated from the whole, the moment there was the slightest separation, okay, that's when things began. And we call it the Big Bang. We call it, the science call it Big Bang. You know,
Okay, so the thought, what would it be like to be separate, and the Big Bang were simultaneous. And the entire
and
universe.
then consciousness came into being, and now we take consciousness for granted, thinking that it is giving us life. But consciousness does not give us life, it gives us the ego to build a life, such as the body. The body is built by consciousness.
So consciousness is selfish in nature. It's concerned with me and I.
It's concerned with me and I as separate.
Right.
So it created a feeling of separation, you see. And as we began to expand and grow, you know, we begin to see, oh, those are black and those are green and those are white and those are red, and they're different people. And so we began to war against each other because we didn't agree, we couldn't see moving in the same area of thinking.
So that's the nature of separation.
And that is the nature of separation. Separation is the only suffering in the world. Consciousness extends it by making the individual into a separate individual.
Okay.
And it builds up his body according to what is needed in order to live.
Okay, so the tiny mad idea, at that very moment, we projected out a manifest universe and then projected out bodies, identified with one body in particular as me and other bodies as others out there.
That's right.
Who are lesser or who are guilty or who are different, or we judge them.
Right.
And that creates a separate, that maintains.
And that creates a separation, that creates all the wars. And everything, all suffering comes from that idea of time. Okay? But here is the beautiful thing, the most wonderful thing. Okay? Okay, and it is this. Realizing that you are timeless. You are eternal.
Wow.
Now, the moment you realize you're eternal, and you also realize that the body is simply something you are using in the moment, but your true nature is spirit. That spirit is what keeps you looking alive, healthy, vibrant, thinking, walking, all of that. But in truth, that spirit is the real you. That eternal nature never began and never will end. If you try to think about it, you will fail. There's no way that the mind, which is limited, okay, can ever conceive of something that will never end, and it never began. What if I told you that you were never born? It's hard to conceive, isn't it? It's true. We were never born.
Oh, I understand. It's interesting you say that, because in this world we have memory. So I have memory, or a thought comes, identifies itself as a memory, and says, this was you at 5. Or this was you. So there's this memory is proof you were born, but you weren't.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is change, okay?
Yes.
So time creates change. And change has a beginning, middle, and end. Okay? Just like age. Okay? So, and then there is an ending to something. Ending in time consciousness is finished. It's kaput.
Kaput. That's where everything falls apart.
It falls apart, right. Anything that is timeless has no ending. No ending. So now we come to a very important subject. What does end and what doesn't end?
That's right.
What is timeless? Okay? And it's called when we are in heaven, okay, we are timeless. We are neither male nor female. We are one. That one is called oh, a word I use all the time. What do you call it when we study the four levels of learning about truth?
Pure non-duality?
Non-duality. Truth, time, timelessness is non-duality.
Okay.
All duality has time,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore begins and ends. Okay?
And change.
Change. Now, some people often say, well, how can I find out who I really am? Okay? When you go deep inside into the timeless moment and you go beyond duality. Duality means that everything is an opposite. See, in the beginning, there were no opposites. There was only non-duality. Non-duality is love. Love has no opposite. And so therefore, hate, fear, dislike, blah, 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 never existed. Okay? Only duality with love came love and hate, love and fear, love and rejection.
Beginning and end.
Beginning and end. So fear was the result of living in duality. Everything has a duality. Up has a down. Front has a back. Okay? When we started out in life, we started out as timeless essence. What is the word?
Eternal?
Eternal nature. Anyway, it's unchanging. Okay? So this is the truth. When we begin to think in terms of a religion, in terms of study, in terms of how do you know this and how do you know that, the intellect, immediately we lose ourselves in detail. Losing yourself in detail is all made up of time. Time is memory. And when you think you have a memory of what went on, okay, then you begin to think it's real. But whatever happened in the past simply happened in the past. The past is not the present. The present is not the future. Therefore, all we ever have is the present. So what happened in the past or is going to happen in the future is not of essential nature. So what we need to find out is that which is now. Now the eternal. When we come to know the eternal, we come to know for the first time what is beautiful and what is true. Now you might say flowers wilt and die. Are they not true? Yes. They are true. They are true just like the human form lives and dies. But the spirit within the form is eternal. And so the spirit within the flower produces other flowers later on. You see something? Everything is continuing. What I'm saying by flower, I mean beauty. All right? Because beauty itself is part of the eternal. So what I'm trying to say here is that we see that we think in terms of time and timelessness. All my life I thought about time. I'm growing older, now I should be doing this, now I better tackle this, now I study this. And all the time is coming by, and I'm changing from one to another. But there's always a fear of something ending. Maybe this relationship is going to end. Maybe my body is going to die. Maybe this is going to happen. You see? But when you start realizing that which is most useful and beautiful is non-duality. Non-duality is timeless. Okay? When you come to know which is timeless, then there is a strength that will come to you. For example, I love you. Okay? Now, I cannot hold you to me forever because there goes a time when these bodies are gone.
And I might protest at some point.
But the real you, the you who got along with me became love.
That's right.
Love is eternal.
Okay.
Now, very few people know that. They think, oh, he loved me one time and now he doesn't love me anymore. No, we're talking about a time that understands its oneness.
So it's about love.
And it's all love. It's all love.
It's all about
Love
love.
is oneness. It never separates.
So we lived in this oneness that was pure love.
Mm-hmm.
We had this idea, what would it be like to be separate? And suddenly the answer came.
Mm-hmm.
And it came in the form of, like in this moment, I'm a person in a body, in a world. And all of a sudden there's this tremendous fear and upset and a sense of guilt and a sense of self-hatred. People are very unhappy.
You're thinking in terms of time.
That's right. And you're also thinking, I did something. I destroyed this beautiful oneness, and now I feel really bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel guilty about destroying it, and now I'm trapped in this nightmare.
Right. And now let's talk about guilt.
Okay.
Now, when the moment you start thinking of time, guilt comes into being.
Okay.
Okay. Guilt means that I am a particular person, that I'm a particular body, and I'm a particular thing. But there's always the fear that's going to change. Okay? So you hold on to dear life. That holding on is called tension. It's called stress. You see? And all the things that are not, quote, beautiful is anything that comes out from the time-filled essence. Okay. When you bring anything to its timeless essence, by feeling it inside, something inside you becomes very strong, almost boundless, to the point where you change, the body changes, it becomes older, but inside you become stronger. Okay? Because you know you can never end. You never end because you never begun. Now, there's another thing. If we're talking about timeless, it means there was never a beginning. That's correct.
So there's only now, right?
There's only now, this moment, forever.
So we're here and now, and we're believing a lie. But if we knew the truth, we would recognize we have eternal life, and we would know ourselves to be in heaven right at this moment.
Exactly. What we call heaven is really timeless. See? And there's nothing that we cannot do or be or become when we are in that total timeless state, because it's invincible.
Right. So it's one thing to hear
there's
about.
No limitation.
It's one thing to hear about it, but it's another thing to actually know this. Is there something out there, some process, some mechanism where we can come to know the truth of this?
Yes, but the thing is that you cannot use the things of nature, the things of life, which are built on duality. Okay, everything is built on a duality.
Okay.
Right. That which has no duality is always unchanging. When you go deep within, take a deep breath and just be. And in that being, you begin to glimpse, ever so slightly, but ever so effectively, that you are eternal, that you are timeless. And as this timeless essence begins to grow in you, knowing that nothing worthwhile in life, nothing that is
that changes or ends or dies.
Or dies, yeah, is eternal.
Is eternal.
Eternal. And that is the most beautiful thing. You want to know a person who's at peace? The one who knows the eternal.
Okay. So now is this the same as forgiveness?
Now, that's
still.
where forgiveness is absolutely essential. Because when you live in time, or think that you live in time, which most people do, then you're easily offended, easily hurt, because somebody is going to make some changes to your personality, some changes to you, talking about you. It becomes very personal. The personal is very time-bound. Okay? The you, who you are, okay, is timeless. So therefore, nobody can touch you. Nobody can say anything to you that will offend you. When you live in time, you're always offended, always hurt, always protective, always fighting to get even. Okay? Then comes the greatest law of all. The law that will bring you to the timeless is called forgiveness.
Okay.
Okay? So therefore, when somebody had hurt you and they really insulted you because they want to bring you down, okay? And bring you down means corrupt you.
Or when you perceive it as that.
Perceive it as that.
Yes.
Okay.
When I perceive offense.
You suffer. You suffer a great deal. When you know that you are not time-bound, when you know you are eternal, that very knowing itself becomes stronger and stronger, the more you begin to feel it. It just doesn't meditation or being. You see? You look at the sky is always there. You see? The sun is always there. God is always there. God is the most eternal thing there is. Anything that is eternal is love. Did you know that?
Yes.
It's so beautiful, very, very beautiful. So when you begin to love someone, it's just like you're becoming one with them. You see, there is that binding, because it becomes one. Anything that is...
And that's done through forgiveness?
Through forgiveness.
So forgiveness starts as a judgment against another,
Mm-hmm.
and then we recognize our play in it.
That's right.
And realize that they're innocent, and we're really recognizing our own innocence.
The point is to recognize that everybody is innocent.
That's
because
right.
Innocence is eternal.
Okay. So you can't know who you really are if you have a judgment against another
That's
person.
Right. When you make a judgment, you are simply creating time-bound things.
So if you're meditating and you're taking a deep breath, if you're doing that, but you still hate your neighbor, it's not really going to help you discover who you really are.
Right. And you're creating time-bound thinking.
Right.
Time-bound thinking is always, 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 always negative.
So the best thing to do with your meditation is to forgive any negative thoughts that come up, any judgments that come up.
But you see, you get rid of them not by saying these are not real, by seeing that they cannot exist timelessly.
And you can see what their purpose was, to create the illusion of duality, because we can't even create this duality without that conflict, can we?
Right. That's right.
So
we're all the time we're creating duality. For example, there was this is just a scientific thing. The question is this: if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound?
No.
No, it can't make a sound because there's no one to hear it.
Yeah, as far as I know.
However, okay, it creates
sound waves.
Okay, the sound waves are always happening, always happening. Those sound waves are timeless, but they're changing. They change in their capacity. They change in their volume. Okay, so now, let's talk about waves. For example, you have a phone and you talk to someone 100 miles away, okay? And there are 10 people with him. Nobody answers your phone call except the one that you want to call, the one you call, okay? So it goes directly to the person that you want to call. Now, how is that placed with timelessness? Okay. Sound changes all the time, but sound is that which also creates living things. I'm a little lost for words right now. Okay. In truth, when the tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound and there's no one to hear it? It makes a sound, it makes some waves, but if there are no ears to hear it, it doesn't exist. So, not only doesn't exist, the tree itself never fell.
Right.
Like the tree itself doesn't exist. So anything that is not of that nature.
So whatever is not in my consciousness never existed and doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
That's right.
So right now, Pluto doesn't exist because where's Pluto?
Right.
I don't see Pluto. Yeah.
And consciousness, don't forget, it's ego. So your perception is controlled by time all the time. Okay? You look at anything, oh, it's old, oh, it's falling apart, or it's beginning, or it's a baby new, or it's old. So there's always time in everything that you experience. In consciousness, when you live from true being, which is pure awareness, okay, this means you and God are one. There's no separation at all. When you and God are one, you are living from that timeless state. That timeless state is called love. And this is the most important thing there is, because from love comes peace, comes joy, comes happiness, comes fulfillment, comes embracing comes. Think of all the things that are beautiful.
Okay.
They all timeless.
That's right.
And they all come from love.
Right.
Love is timeless.
Yeah. And what's beautiful is all of what you just described are exactly the things that occur when you forgive a brother. Suddenly you're reconnected, you're in love again, you're at peace again, you're innocent again. All of this timelessness. So that's why forgiveness works, because it's like a little mini return home to heaven.
That's right. And as things fall away, okay, you see that they were time bound, but time does not fall away. Time is. But because it is, it cannot be tangible. You cannot see it. Okay? Senses cannot perceive that which is timeless. So therefore, it comes as a knowing. And that very knowing is superior to seeing. Okay? Because that knowing is the eternal.
That's what the Course means by knowledge. It says
knowledge is knowing beyond the doubt.
And then perception is not knowing.
Perception is changeable.
So it's similar to awareness and consciousness.
That's
knowing is like awareness.
That's right.
Consciousness is like perception.
Right. Right. Yeah. So sometimes people have the idea, if I belong to that religion, I'm going to be good and go to heaven. Or if I do this practice, I'm going to be good, and blah, blah, blah. The reason we mention the word good, because the word good is timeless.
Good is of God.
Exactly.
Pertaining to oneness.
It is that which
it's whole.
That which is. That, did you know that which is always is good?
That's right. Everything's good. So that means everybody goes home to this place.
Everybody goes home to this place called heaven. Heaven is where everything doesn't die. Even the flowers grow, but you can step on it and they bounce back. You've heard of people have had experiences in the
NDEs,
and
the oneness and their descriptions.
Oh, and incidentally, talking about endlessness, it's beautiful when you know that you're eternal, but the most important thing of all is to know it intuitively. For example, there's a doctor, Jeffrey Long, and he made research of about thousands and thousands of people who had NDE, who died, and then brought them back to life. And then they all told the same story. They went to heaven. And they found that heaven, which is of course the eternal now, never changed, is their true home. They didn't want to come back to earth, because earth, everything changes all the time. You cannot trust anything. Not even a friend sometimes. A friend. Anything that has a quality of stability has beauty in it. See, love is the most stable thing of all. And so where do we go from here? That's it.
Atonement.
You don't need to belong to anything. You don't need to do anything. You need to know one thing, however, before we finish, okay? And it's called atonement.
Right. What that's saying?
Now, atonement simply means you don't have to atone, because it's already been atoned. You're already permanent. You're already always. So when you thought that the world changed by thinking, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? What if I separate from the whole? I don't want to be one with God.
Oh, it's just
the
thought.
Moment you separate, you create time. And everything starts to fall apart.
Right, and it's just thought.
It
never happened.
And it never happened. Now they say, science says, well, the Big Bang came time. Okay? The moment time came movement. Movement is the earth going around the sun. And all it is going around the sun. But it is creating days. It is creating months. You see, whatever, different seasons. Now you might say, are seasons true? Well, no, not really. They do change, and they're permanent in the sense that they always keep on moving. You know, there's a timeful thing about them. However, okay, this is very important. Anything that is controlled by time also creates change.
And death, ultimately.
And
everything falls apart.
Yeah, everything eventually comes to an end.
Right. Everything.
when there is anything timed by time.
Including the entire universe is supposed to come to an end at some point.
At some point, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the disappearance of the universe written by
right. Gary Renard.
Gary Renard, which
Yes.
I, incidentally, a book I totally recommend. But anyway, one more thing before we go that I'd like to stress is that always know that the world never went into separation. There was a time, yes, when we had a very mad, crazy idea. What if we were separate? And that moment we created separation. Separation was a movement of change. You see? So everything became changing and everything. But we, the spirit, which is unchanging, which is timeless, kept on growing to the realization of change. When you are able to stand back and see the change happening without affecting you, now you've reached realization.
Beautiful.
You see? What we call a great saint or a great being. What made Jesus so incredible? You see? That despite anything that happened to him, he was changeless. In
always
fact,
loving.
Always loving, because love is unchanging. You see? There could be fear, rejection, whatever, but the truth is that anything in you that is stable and not time-bound is always beautiful.
Wonderful.
Anyway, so we'll come to a close. This is the greatest love. The greatest love is when it's timeless. And then you don't love a person because they're beautiful physically. You don't love a person because they are rich. You don't love a person because they own some estate. You love a person because love is endless. And love is something that adjusts itself. For example, you are with a person and you start to like them. But liking is changeable. Liking can begin and end. But you begin to fall in love with them. Now, what is falling in love? You begin to see qualities in them that are stable. You see qualities that are very beautiful, but they have no beginning or ending. They have no fragility about them. They have a strength in them. The moment you start loving that person, you and that person become one eventually.
You recognize yourself in that.
Because you recognize yourself. And that very self-recognition becomes love. So we end this by saying this, okay? How do you find the eternal? Find the love in you. The more you love, the bigger your heart gets. Now, when I say the heart, I don't mean just the physical heart, which ends as the body dies. But the very center of your being becomes stronger and stronger, where you begin to see everything as the eternal now, the eternal being. The eternal being is God. From God came Christ, from Christ came Jesus, and they gave us A Course in Miracles.
I know, and speak of the greatest love story ever told.
And
The Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles.
Anyway, I got carried away a little bit, but it's all true. Everything that's been done, and you can find it in your own heart that it's true. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
See you next time.